Howdy folks, today we're talking about Swedish Punch, a delicious cocktail ingredient you can make at your house for use in classic and modern cocktails. Let's go. So, a few questions I get when I start talking about Swedish Punch. One is, what is it? Another is, how do you make it? And the third is, why? Now, as far as why, I'll link to some cocktail recipes down in the description. It's an ingredient that gets used in a certain number of pre-prohibition classic cocktails. I'm also going to be making some more Swedish Punch drinks later in a couple weeks. So stay tuned for that. You can subscribe and hit the little bell thingamajig if you want to be notified when these Swedish Punch recipes show up on my channel. And I will have another Swedish Punch drink later in this video, so stay tuned for that. What is Swedish Punch? It's basically a punch made with Batavia Arrack. Now, what is Batavia Arrack, you ask? Well, Batavia was a Dutch colony in the West Indies, what is now Indonesia. I believe Batavia turned into Jakarta. I could be wrong about that. And Batavia was the capital of the Dutch East Indies, where, you know, the Dutch East India Trading Company did a lot of imperialist stuff, but did a lot of trading back and forth. And in addition to the Dutch East India Trading Company, there was also the Swedish East India Trading Company. And what they did was import Arrack, Batavia Arrack, back to Sweden. Batavia Arrack is, it's basically like a rum, it's like a rum adjacent. It's a pressed cane juice distillate, a rum basically, but it also uses red rice that they grow in Java as part of the mash bill. So it's a pretty unique product. So they imported it to Sweden in the 1800s, and around the 1740s or 50s, when punch was becoming a popular thing, but people didn't always have time to make punch. They started bottling basically a punch concentrate. They would take this Arrack, they would add tea, citrus peel maybe, certain spices, various things, and they would put that in a bottle. You could buy the bottle and you had like instant punch. Just add fizzy water or champagne or whatever. Now, quick sidebar. Swedish Punch is spelled with an extra S, punch. I do that because that's the way the Swedes do it. And also it just sort of distinguishes between sweet punch, the sort of cocktail ingredient, and punch like you would put in a punch bowl for a party. Now, these punches, which they actually still make in Sweden and Finland and probably some other places. There's a few different brands that you can get over there apparently. In America, you can only get one called Kronen Swedish Punch, which is actually, it's delicious. Now, in addition to being just punches that people would drink or bring to a party, they also became popular as pre-prohibition cocktail ingredients. There are a number of cocktails that call for it in the Savoy Cocktail Book, for example, as far as like Hugo Enslin's book, stuff like that. So that's what Swedish Punch is. The question is, why am I making it? Well, back in the early 2000s when like cocktail blogs were popular and the sort of cocktail renaissance started happening, you couldn't get Swedish Punch in America. They hadn't yet started importing the Kronen Swedish Punch to America. People like Eric Elstad, who actually went through the entire Savoy Cocktail Book and made every drink, they had to come up with a way to make Swedish Punch because they needed to have that ingredient for some of the cocktails. So he came up with a recipe for the Swedish Punch that I'm basically following. Now, this is all documented on his blog, the Savoy Stomp it's called. That's not up anymore, you can't get to it, so you have to go back. If you want to check it out, you have to go to the Wayback Machine and search for savoystomp.com. So I'm going to show you how to make that right now. I did tweak his recipe a little bit because I can't leave well enough alone. I've made this a number of times and I just wanted to experiment a little bit. So for this, you're going to need rum and Batavia Arrack. Now for the rum, I like to use Appleton, the cheapest Appleton Signature. You can use whatever you have around. I'd probably use an aged rum, but use whatever you want. For the Arrack, now Batavia Arrack von Oosten is the one that I can get here. It's about $35. I think there's another brand called By the Dutch, which is a little bit more expensive. And I assume this sort of thing is more available in Europe. I think the By the Dutch is also available in Australia. Anyway, look around. You could probably mail order it if you can't find it locally. You're going to need a couple of lemons. The original recipe I have calls for Sorrento lemons. I don't have those. I can't get those. Sorrento lemons are from Italy, and I believe that's what they make limoncello out of. I don't have that, but for this one I decided to do a regular lemon and a Meyer lemon. They had Meyer lemons at the store, so I figured that was worth a shot. Now for the tea, you want a black tea. I usually use like a Vietnamese wild black that I really like that comes from the fancy tea shop, but I had this PG Tips and I thought maybe that'll work good. Turns out it does work good. And you're going to need some spices. You definitely want to put cardamom in. I decided to throw in some cloves and some allspice just for fun to see what happens. Nutmeg might be a little more traditional, but it's totally up to you. Do what makes you happy. And you're going to need some sugar. I like to use turbinado sugar. I actually didn't quite have enough turbinado sugar, so I supplemented with white sugar. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Now for this method, what you're going to do is you're going to take your lemons, you're going to slice them real thin, and you're going to try and get rid of the seeds. You're going to take all the lemon, you put it into a container, like a glass container, and you're going to put in 2 cups of rum and 1 cup of Batavia Arrack and let it soak for 6 hours. So meanwhile, you're going to make tea. You're going to get 2 cups of boiling water. I added an extra tea bag to mine. 2 or 3 tea bags would be good. And then you're going to throw in the spices with that. I put in 6 cardamom pods, a few cloves, and several allspice berries. Drain out your tea into the sugar, dissolve all that sugar, so you'll make a 1-to-1 tea syrup basically. Let it cool, and later, after the 6 hours are up, we'll just combine those in a bowl, and we're done. Swedish Punch. Let me just give you a quick taste of this punch. It's got this nice sort of amber color. It smells of rum mostly, and a bit of tea. It's got like a nice spiciness. Oh my god. This stuff is delicious. I'm not sure how to convey to you how delicious it is. It's sweet, but not too sweet. It's citrusy, tangy, kind of. It's got this nice tea flavor, like the tea really comes through with its sort of, with that cardamom, I think really does a great job in here. It's like super well balanced. It's like sweet, but like sharp from the Arrack, and the tea sort of ties it together. It's terrific. So we're gonna make Corpse Reviver number 2. If you're not familiar, Corpse Reviver number 2 is gin. I'm gonna use Booker's because I have it sitting around. I actually got it just so I could get the hat. Cointreau, lemon juice, and Lillet. Now, it turns out back in the 40s, around World War II, you couldn't get Lillet really very easily, and some smart person figured out, we'll just substitute Swedish Punch for Lillet, make a whole new drink, basically. I like to call that Corpse Reviver 2B. Let's give it a shot. Now, I've had these before, and I'm confident this is going to be delicious. Oh my god. Corpse Revivers are the best. It's nice gin. It's like a gin backbone. It's got this nice tartness from the Swedish Punch and the lemon, and then rounded out with a orange sort of aftertaste. And of course that absinthe gives the whole thing like an herbal note. It's just got so much going on. It's really delicious. All right, that drink is really good. Let me just, in conclusion, say a couple things. One, I made a pretty big batch of this you don't need to make this big of a batch. I'll leave the recipe down below, but you can feel free to cut it in half. In fact, you don't need to follow this recipe exactly. I would put the cardamom in, but you could put in some nutmeg instead. I understand that might be more traditional Swedish Punch flavor. And also, this tastes great on its own. It tastes great in with soda water. And also, you could use it as as intended as a punch concentrate. Take it to a party, pour it in a bowl, top it off with some fizzy water or champagne even. You got a punch party. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. I'll give you some more Swedish Punch drinks in the coming weeks. I'm gonna need to use up some of the Swedish Punch after all. Don't be a stranger. We'll see you next time.